morning. Today's lesson, student activity sheet 6, weighted averages. We're still in unit 1, analyzing numerical data and advanced quantitative reasoning. Today's bell ringer. If you have 6 minor grades of 100 and 2 major grades of 87 and 83, what would your grade be in class? Okay, so having that information is helpful. But knowing what to do with that information, well, that's a different story. First of all, you have to know exactly how much weight each one of those grades bears on your final grade average. So, in other words, here's the question. What percentage of your final grade for the 6 weeks is your minor grades? Or, for instance, in our school system, we call them daily grades. And what percentage of your final grade is the major grades? Okay, so here's what you got. 6 minor grades that are 100. Obviously, the average of those 6 grades is 100. So we're going to multiply by whatever weight that is, and then we'll add it to the average of the 87 and 83, and we'll multiply it to the weight of that. Now, different grading systems occur at different schools, or different school systems for that matter. So, for instance, in this case, at our school, daily grades, or in this case, what they call minor grades in this particular bell ringer, they account for only 40% of your grade. And the major grades account for 60% of your grade. So the average of 87 and 83, you add those two together, and you're going to get 170. Divide that in half, it's 85. So the major grade average is 85, and we'll multiply 85 times 0.6, which is the decimal equivalent of 60%. And of course, if you multiply the 100 times 0.4, you'll get the weighted average of the daily grades, or the minor grades in this case, because they're only 40% of the grade. So 40%'s decimal equivalence is 0.4. You multiply 100 times 0.4, and you get 40. But you multiply 85 times 0.6, and you get 51. Well, you add those two together, and what do you get? 40 plus 51 is obviously 91. So 91 is the final grade for this bell ringer. I'd like for you guys to work out these bell ringers. I worked them out. I want you to, in the future, when you see the bell ringer, write it down and then pause the video and try to work it out on your own. And I'll be honest with you, you're going to have some integrity here. If you want to learn through about problem solving through the means of the Socratic method, you have to do it yourself. You can't just let someone show you how to do it. There's no wrong way to figure it out. If you make a mistake, well, that's why I give you the answer, because I want you to know how to do it. But if you learn how by plugging and chugging and trying yourself, there's a little measure of that success gets you some more confidence in your mathematics skills. Now, on the opposite end, the failure does give you a little bit of a problem, but understanding from your failures is so much easier than learning from your successes. Successes kind of gets you complacent. Oh, I already know how to do that. But if you learn from your mistakes, you generally do not make those mistakes again. And that's actually been proven to be the case in the majority of them. So let's move on to good things. Good things. Well, we had our tennis match, first tennis match of the season. Had some good showings by some players that we know have not played a whole lot in competition, and they kind of proved us as coaches. I don't know, wouldn't call us wrong, but they surprised us. We knew they'd do well, but we didn't expect them to do as well as they did. So kudos to them. All right, so weighted sums and averages. When a weighted average is applied to a set of numbers, more importance or weight is placed on some components of the set than is placed on other components of the set. So consider the two grading systems below. Grading system 1, the test averages are worth 40%. Final exam is worth 25%. Homework is worth 25%, and class participation 10%. Grading system 2, test average is 60%. Final exam grade and homework are both worth 15%, and the class participation is worth 10%. So, with the following grades, which system would result in a better grade? So if we had test averages of 84, a final exam grade of 68, homework of 90, and class participation of 95. Well, how does that work? Let's see. Using grading systems 1 and 2, which system would be preferred? Let's see how that works out. All right. If you have 3 out of the 4 grades, you can calculate what the 4th might be. Okay. Let's go back and look at this because it didn't finish it out. Which would result in a better grade? Grading system 1. So the test average is 84. So 84, and the percentage is 40%. So we'll multiply that by the decimal equivalent of 0.4. 0.4. 84 times 0.4 is 33.6. So that is the weighted average of 84. The final exam grade is 68. And we're going to multiply that by 0.25, 25%. 68 times 0.25 is 17. So we'll add the 17 to the 33.6, and we get plus 17, 50.6. So right now, with just the test average and the final exam grade, that's a 50.6. So if they didn't do any homework and never participated in class, that's what they would get. But the homework, they got a 90, and it's 25% of the grade. So 25% of 90 is 90 times 0.25 is 22.5. We're going to add the 22.5 with the 22 or to 50.6. And right now, if they didn't participate in class, but they got a 90 on their homework, they would have a 73.1. And in our school system, that would be passing. But in class participation, they get 10% of their grade on their class participation. Well, they have a 95 in class participation. I'll multiply that by the decimal equivalent of 10%, which is 0.1, and that gives us 9.5. We're going to add the 9.5 to the 73.1. And grading, well, let me do this again. Grading system 1 gives us 82.6 as the final grade point average. Okay? So grading system 1 gives us an 82.6. I would write that down. Grading system 1, 82.6. Now let's go to grading system 2. Same system, different weights. So 84 times the decimal equivalent of 60%, because the test averages give us 60% of the final grade, times 0.6 is, wow, 50.4. Notice something here. The test average alone gives us the same grade, or actually higher grade, than the total weight of the test average and the final exam grade in grading system 1. Well, let's look at grading system 2's final exam grade percentage. It's 15%. So we're going to multiply that 68 times 0.15, and that gives us a 10.2. We'll add that to 50.4, and that gives us a 60.6. All right, 90 in the homework, also only worth 15%. We'll multiply that by the decimal equivalent of 0.15, and we're going to add 13.5 to the 60.6. And we are now at a 74.1. Still below that 82.6 in grading system 1. Well, let's find out, what does that class participation get? They get the same thing as in grading system 1. It's 10%. Multiply 95 times 0.1, it's 9.5. We're going to add 9.5 to the 74.1. 9.5. We ended up with an 83.6. So obviously, grading system 2 nets us a higher grade by 1 grading point. Grading system 2 gets us an 83.6, and grading system 1 only gets us an 82.6. So follow along there. Let me see what I can do. All right. Consider the following scores. You have test grades of 80, 74, 82, and 88. Final exam grade 84. Homework 90 and class participation 95. We'll follow the same process, but before we begin, we're going to determine our test grades average. Well, that's easy. You just add them all together and divide by the number of them, right? So you've got 80, and you'll add to that 74. You'll add to that 82, and you'll add to that 88, and that nets us 324. And we're going to divide that by the total number of test grades, and there are 4 of them, so we'll divide that by 4, and it comes up with an 81. So your test average score is an 81. And if you go back to the last slide, grading system 1, 40%, 25, 25, 10. Grading system 2, 60, 15, 15, 10. All right, so 84, 90, 95, not the same grades we had below, so we're going to have to multiply everything. No, just the test average and the final exam grade. We already know what the result is for the homework because we had it in the last one. We'll go back and look at it. All right, so 81 times 0.4 times 0.4, which is the decimal equivalent of 40%, is 32.4. Okay? And then we'll do the grading system 2 at the same time. 81 times 0.6 is 48.6. You can see a grading system, the weight they put on that test score helps immensely. Now, how about this 84 on their final exam? That is times 0.25 in grading system 1. 84 times 0.25, that's a 21. And 84 times 0.15 in grading system 2 times 0.15 gives us a 12.6. It's nowhere near what we had for that final exam grade weighted score. Now, the 90 times 0.25, we already know from the last one is, let me go back and look, 22.5. And the 10% of the 95, 95 times 0.10 is 9.5. So 90 times 0.15, we know, and this is from grading system 2, 90 times 0.15 is 13.5. And 95 times 0.1 is 9.5. We have the same weighted average for the classroom participation on both grading systems. Well, let's add them up. So on grading system 1, we're going to add 32.4 plus 21 plus 22.5 plus the 9.5. And we end up with a final average of 85.4 for grading system 1. Grading system 2, 48.6 plus 12.6 plus 13.5 plus the 9.5, 84.2. Well, in this system, we're looking at grading system 2 only got an 84.2, and grading system 1 got an 85.4. So grading system 1 got a better grade. Now, where do you think grading system 1 got the better deal? And if you look at the first 2 sets of scores, the test grades and the final exam grade, that weight of 40% in grading system 1, while it wasn't near as much as they got for grading system 2, the 25% for the 84 they got in the final exam and the 90 they got in the homework, it was a substantial difference than the 84 they got in the 15% in grading system 2 and the 90 they got in homework at only 15%. Those were substantial. 21 versus 12.6 and 22.5 versus 13.5. That's a whole 9 points difference. The other one, it was almost 9. It's 8.4 difference. That's a 17.4 point difference out of 100. That's major. Now, if you have 3 out of 4 grades, you can calculate what the fourth might be to determine your final grade. Using both grading systems, calculate what your final exam grade must be to get an 87 as the final grade. Now, this is a difficult way to do it. Honestly, I can do this on a spreadsheet, and I'd be more than happy to show you. If you want to know what your final exam grade must be to pass my class, I've done it every year. I actually send out this spreadsheet to other faculty members so that they can use it to find out what their students' weighted average is. Weighted averages is how school systems grade their students. All right, we're going to calculate what the final exam grade must be. Now let's think. Grading system 1, 85 times 0.4. Grading system 2, 85 times 0.6, right? Homework in grading system 1, 90 times 0.25. Grading system 2, 90 times 0.15. And grading system 1, 95 in the participation times 0.10. And it's the same in grading system 2 times 0.10. Now, here's the deal. What are we missing in the final exam grade? It's what we need to know. Well, in grading system 1, it's worth 25%. And in grading system 2, it's worth 15% of the total grade. So we're going to call it FE. That's going to be our variable. So follow me here. We know that we want to get a final grade of 87 on both of them. So in the first grading system, you would put in an equation 85 times 0.4 in parentheses plus in parentheses FE, which is your variable for final exam, times 0.25. If you want to, you can write it as 0.25 FE, making 0.25 the coefficient of the variable we're seeking to discover final exam grade. And then we're going to add 90 in parentheses times 0.25, the quantity of 90.25 inside the parentheses, plus 95 times 0.10. And we're going to set that entire equation, or that entire polynomial, equal to the final exam grade, or the final grade we want to get of 87. Now all we have to do is calculate. 85 times 0.4, it's 34, plus 0.25 FE, plus 90.25. We've done this before. It is 90 times 0.25 is 22.5. And then 95 times 0.1 is 9.5. And we'll set that equal to 87. So after we've done a little bit of calculations, we got 34 plus 0.25 FE plus 22.5 plus 9.5 equals 87. Now we're going to add all of these like items. We've got 34, 22.5, and 9.5 on the left side of the equation. We're going to add together because they're all like items. They're all constants. 34 plus 22.5 plus 9.5 equals 66. So we have 66 plus 0.25 FE equals 87. Okay, now we want to isolate the FE because that's what we're trying to discover, the final exam grade, right? So we're going to subtract 66 from both sides of the equation. So 66 minus 66 is going to be 0, and 87 minus 66 is 21. So we have 0.25 FE equals 21. Now, to find the final exam grade, all we have to do now with this equation, we've narrowed it down to 0.25 FE equals 21. 0.25 is the actual coefficient. So we're going to divide by 0.25 on both sides. That isolates FE. It cancels out the 0.25 coefficient. And we're going to divide 21 by 0.25, and that nets us 1/4 of 21 is 84. So in grading system 1, according to our calculations using algebra, we need to have an 84 on the final exam to get an 87. Okay, so that's easy enough. I'm going to dispense with showing you how to do grading system 2 because I'd like to show you something else. I'm gonna launch you with something that I like to talk about. As you notice, some of the videos I've done lately end with this phrase, be blessed, be a blessing. Now, I didn't make that up. I want to be honest with you. It's a really cool salutation, but a really close friend of my family I grew up with, I went to high school with his brother. My brother went to high school with him. He was a missionary, and he went to Africa several times. And in Kenya, where he went, there's a greeting just like that over there. And it really resonated with me. And it didn't just resonate with me, it resonates with a lot of people that we grew up with. A lot of my friends online and people I went to high school with, people that I grew up with from elementary school all the way through college, we all use this phrase, be blessed, be a blessing. Well, my friend Scott Hudson, one of his legacies before he passed away was to coin this phrase. And it's really resonated with us very, very much because he was a very caring and loving person, cared for everyone, spent a lot of time talking to people about just their life, just talking and, making them, see the some of the choices they made are not always the best. And some of the choices they made are really good in their life. And he's just a life skills person. Being a missionary, he's lived a really rural life out in rural Africa. He's been out there to see these people and know what it's like to live. And he's kind of an inspiration to a lot of people in my hometown up in Indiana. And Scott Hudson will forever be the person that I admire probably the most in my life. He died of lung cancer. One of the vices he had was that he smoked like a chimney. And before he died, he gave me a video to show my students. I really wish I had it, but the whole video was, I only have one piece of advice for you students, and that is don't smoke. Don't smoke, don't smoke, don't smoke. He must have said it the whole time. And what was very profound about it wasn't the fact that he said it. It's because that he had been through chemo. He was completely bald. He was wearing the emphatic oxygen mask. So, it was when he was on his deathbed, it was something he wanted to do for me. And I really wish I could find it. I cannot find it anywhere, but I mean, it makes me upset just to think about it. But I left this one blank. I didn't want to show any pictures. I've showed a picture of him before. I didn't want to talk about it too much because it really gets me upset. Anyway, be blessed, be a blessing, and don't forget to do your assignment in the Google Classroom.